It was a moonless night when I arrived at the strange and frightening orphanage. The caretaker, Mr. Blackwood, had given me cryptic instructions. Just follow the path through the woods. You can't miss it. I should have turned back, but my curiosity got the best of me. The air was thick with an unsettling chill, and the dense canopy of trees overhead cast long shadows that seemed to whisper secrets. As I walked deeper into the forest, a frightening mist crept in. The path became increasingly overgrown, and the silence was deafening. The only sound I could hear was the faint rustling of leaves, like the forest was whispering its own warnings. Finally, I saw it, a towering wrought iron gate, covered in twisted vines, an elaborate arch that bore the words, "Blackwood Orphanage, Home for the Forsaken," in a style that sent shivers down my spine. I pushed open the creaking gate and stepped into a courtyard choked with weeds. The orphanage was a massive, imposing structure, its windows shattered and its facade crumbling. The entire place exuded an aura of abandonment. My heart raced as I approached the entrance, a heavy wooden door that had partially rotted away. I hesitated for a moment, wondering if I should continue, but I couldn't turn back now. With trembling hands, I pushed the door open and it groaned in protest. The entrance was in mess, littered with broken furniture and faded photographs. An overwhelming sense of desolation hung in the air, and I felt like an intruder in a place filled with forgotten memories. Suddenly, I heard a soft, frightening laughter from the shadows. It was the laughter of children, but it was far from joyful. I followed the sound, feeling a growing sense of dread. The laughter led me to a long, dimly lit corridor. The walls were decorated with drawings that was crude and unsettling. They depicted twisted faces, nightmarish creatures, and messages like, "Help us and don't leave." The children's laughter grew louder, echoing through the hallways, but there was something deeply unsettling about it. It was as though the laughter was the exterior, masking the true horrors that lay within. I moved cautiously down the hallway, my footsteps muffled by the thick layer of dust covering the floor. The laughter drew me to a half-open door, and as I peered inside, I saw a group of children huddled in a circle. They were staring at something in the center, their faces contorted with fear. I couldn't see what they were looking at, but I felt an overwhelming urge to approach. As I got closer, the children turned to me with hollow, vacant eyes. Their laughter had turned into a chilling, unnatural chant. They spoke in unison, their voices low and filled with a deep, sorrowful longing. "Join us," they whispered, and I couldn't resist. I knelt down to join their circle, my mind clouded by a strange compulsion. In the center, there was a decaying doll, its porcelain face cracked and its eyes hollow. The children were caressing it as if it were a precious treasure. I reached out to touch the doll, and as my fingers brushed its cold, lifeless form, the children's chant grew louder, almost deafening. It was a haunting melody, a moaning for something long lost. I felt a shiver run down my spine as the children's eyes locked onto mine, and they whisper it in unison, "Stay with us." But before I could respond, a voice called out from the shadows, breaking the spell. It was Mr. Blackwood, his presence casting a dark shadow over the room. "Children," he said, his voice dripping with a sinister sweetness, "it's time for our guest to leave." The children's chant abruptly stopped, and their vacant eyes turned toward Mr. Blackwood. He extended a skeletal hand towards me, and I could feel an invisible force compelling me to take it. As I rose to my feet, the children's mournful gazes followed me, and their chant began once again, even more haunting than before. I had to tear my eyes away, and I reluctantly followed Mr. Blackwood back into the corridor. Once we were outside the room, he turned to me with a smile that sent shivers down my spine. "I'm glad you came, my dear. It's so rare that we have visitors." I couldn't speak. I was too overcome with a sense of anxiety. Mr. Blackwood escorted me to the front door and opened it, releasing me from the scary grip of the orphanage. As I stumbled out into the moonlit night, the heavy door slammed shut behind me. The laughter of the forsaken children echoed in my ears as I made my way back through the dark woods. I knew then that I had escaped a fate far worse than I could have ever imagined. The strange and frightening orphanage was a place where the forsaken children were bound to linger for eternity, and I had narrowly avoided becoming one of them. To this day, the memory of that night haunts me, and I can still hear the haunting melody of the forsaken children's chant, a lament for the souls trapped within those decaying walls. I tremble to think about what might have happened if I had succumbed to the strange and frightening allure of the Blackwood Orphanage, a place where the forsaken children of the past beckon to those who dare to enter.